Well, look at that, 9 o'clock sharp, and here we are, online, ready to go. Is the future of our youth living in shipping containers? Who needs to approve a pipeline? And Ford says Bank of Canada must act now. Healthcare crisis in BC continues to escalate. And where is the beef? All that and a lot more on The Really Big Show. I'm Jim Csek with NowMedia. With me, Iain Burns, our managing editor, all the way out there in our nation's capital. Again, big, beautiful day here in the Okanagan. Sun is shining, skies are blue, and it was absolutely hot yesterday, and it looks to be another hot one here. How are things looking out there?
It's nowhere near as nice. Although I feel like Kelowna maybe it's getting into the not so nice territory now with like 35s and that kind of thing. But it's just cloudy here. Well, there's a bit of sunshine actually. There's a wee bit of sunshine, so.
A wee bit of sunshine? I'm just like looking.
But it's stuffy here. That's the thing, because it's very humid climate.
Yeah. There you go. Let's get into it. And the first one we're going to play for you is this clip here from, I know everybody's missed her, a fan of the show or a friend of the show, Christia Friedland. We haven't had her on for a while, so like we need to get an interview with her too, because, you know, she goes back and forth with this Jacob Mantle, a Conservative MP, on the future of where you get to live. And let's just play this clip first.
Mr. Speaker, one of the policies the Prime Minister campaigned on was building modular housing. That is a way to get more homes built faster, and we know that by removing barriers to internal trade in our country, we can get a modular housing industry going in our country. Exactly. That is one of the solutions to the housing crisis. I hope the members opposite will be constructive and support this important legislation.
Mr. Speaker, my generation refuses to live in a shipping container.
There you go. Did you see Gregor Robertson's bobbling his head there? He's the bobblehead. He's sitting there right next to her, Mr. Speaker. And there you go. So yeah, so modular housing, we talked about this many times too, is Canada's future, basically Pottersville from the old movie It's a Wonderful Life. And shipping containers, is that the future for our youth? Because they're now saying, they're actually openly saying it. That's how they're going to fix the housing crisis. Shipping containers or modular homes.
I mean, they make them look a bit more like homes, obviously, rather than shipping containers. But the idea is that they're built somewhere else, aren't they? At a big factory site, and then driven and just like deposited, and then they just need to be like, it's like IKEA, an IKEA house. You just like set it up there on the spot, and that saves a lot of money, apparently.
I've toured several factories of modular homes. Even the one in Boxable, the one that's in the United States, Boxable, where they flat pack them, and then I think it takes about 2 hours for them to kind of just like flip them open. I mean, there's a number of different ways modular homes are built. That one, Boxable, is a flat pack. I think they're about 400 square feet. And then there's obviously like, it's kind of like trailers of days of old modular homes too. And then there's the other ones where they make the walls and then do some of the assembly on site. So there is a range of modular homes, but they tend to be fairly expensive by per square foot. Like Boxable, I think they were about $50,000 US, but that's at the factory. And then I think it was almost like $5 a mile to ship it. So it gets expensive. Wow. Really fast to move it anywhere, right? So obviously they're heavy, and the Boxable ones came with the appliances built right into, but you know, still the dream in Canada is the single family home, I think, for most people trying to raise a family.
Exactly, and that's the point, that was made by that opposition MP, who I don't actually know who that is, but I'm guessing he's millennial or maybe even Generation Z.
As Jacob Mantle, yeah.
Yeah, Jacob Mantle. Let's have a look how old he is and see. Okay, so he is a young fellow, isn't he? Born 1988. So that makes him a millennial. So the millennials are the first generation to get really shafted, aren't they, in the housing market? But it's I think it's the next one, Generation Z. They're even more furious because they have even less opportunity than millennials. But it's quite accurate, isn't it? When Chrystia Freeland stood there, when she was growing up, when she was in her 20s or whatever, housing was dramatically more affordable and also higher quality. And you could actually, like, it wasn't some kind of like wild dream to want to buy a single family home. It was just like, oh yeah, I'll just do that, obviously, when I get around to it. And then for her to stand there in a position of power and say, you're all going to end up in these IKEA prefab homes. It's, yeah, because it is obviously young people are going to be the primary audience or primary market for that, aren't they? So that, again, with housing and with many other things, it becomes like a question of generational fairness. So I think that is a legitimate point.
Yeah, I think I bought my first home in my early 20s in High Level, Alberta. And it was a brand new home, 1,030 square feet, and it was $85,000.
Wow.
And it had a basement, and so then, you know, just even back then to make it work, my brother rented the basement out. Him and his wife lived in the basement, and I lived upstairs. And then, yeah, there you go. That was $85,000 back then for a brand new home.
But now I guess you can have yourself a shipping container.
There you go. We also got this here. This is we're going to play this clip. This is an interview with our friend David Cochrane and the U.S. ambassador talking about the overplayed threat of our sovereignty here. And they had a conversation here. Let's play that.
But you can understand the skepticism, can't you, Ambassador, on this side of the border? Because, you know, the 51st state stuff, and I know you said that was gone away, but then the president put it out on social media. If you join, you get Golden Dome for free.
Let's get it clarified. I said it was away unless the president or Carney decided to bring it up. And coincidentally, I think you could argue, you could make a credible case that as the president brought it up, maybe the Canadians were bringing it up, and maybe the media was bringing it up at the same time. It wasn't just the president of the United States with his tweet. It was 36 hours of nonstop media coverage and Canadians talking about, this is proving our sovereignty. And it's kind of like you're thumping the president in the chest for 36 hours, and you shouldn't be, but
imagine that.
I mean, it is accurate to say that the media saw that as a bonanza, as they have ever since Donald Trump first entered politics and started to open his mouth. He's just been like, it's just been this miracle for journalists, especially for lazy journalists, just to jump on it and it's like feast on Donald Trump's comments. And that goes back, like, in my memory, that goes all the way back to when he attached himself to that the birther claims associated with Barack Obama, the idea that he was actually born in Kenya or whatever it was. As soon as he seems to just know how to say things to get the press extremely excited. And I think the press definitely feasted upon that, and certainly the Liberal Party did. The Liberal Party based its entire campaign around it, and so did Doug Ford of the Progressive Conservatives in Ontario. But also at the same time, this ridiculous man here is, I mean, as is true of every single one of Donald Trump's servants, he makes a fool out of himself because he knows that Trump is watching. I assume this is, or they think Trump might be watching. So I've got to say something really dumb here, and I've got to blame this somehow not on Trump but on the people who reacted to Trump's statements. So I mean, it's truth coming from the mouth of somebody that, you know, it's not going to be well received from, but that's my view of that.
We talked about Gregor Robertson, and he says his Liberal cabinet would like to see the overall cost of housing come down, but the federal government does not control the price of housing, and that's why we're investing. The minister told reporters that he did not believe lower prices were a solution, and that it is more about getting more supply to find some stability in the market. And we talked about in that past as well, that stability, because a lot of Canadians' wealth is tied up in their homes, and we're starting to see some price decreases as well and that's scaring some Canadians that are now underwater in their mortgages as well.
I think this is just yet another fumble, isn't it? It's another cop-out, and it's an attempt to play around with words.
No.
And it's deceit. I mean, just in my view, I'll just say exactly what I think it is, and it's deceit. It's deceitful to say that the way that sentence, that phrase has been constructed to bring down, the overall cost of housing come down. That's what he wants. The overall cost of housing. What does that mean? Like, the more you think about it, the less sense that makes. Is he talking about rent? He's talking about the cost of materials. He's not talking about the price of houses, which is the most important thing. So it's just it's just the usual ambiguity and spinelessness and vagueness from people in power in this country, unfortunately.
Yeah, and they got to build a lot of homes. And even Bob Dugan, the CMHC chief economist, in 2023 testimony said that affordability target was difficult. It's going to be difficult to attain, and he doesn't see how that's going to happen. So it'll remain to be seen what they can achieve in their target of 500,000 new homes a year, and what they will actually, I guess, define as a home. Maybe that'll be the thing that makes the difference there. But we have your friend Doug Ford there making some comments to Tiff Macklin. Again, we're always surprised that Tiff Macklin still has a job. So let's play this clip here from the Premier of Ontario.
We have a whole bunch of empty condos sitting around right now. And a message to the Governor of Bank of Canada, man, you got to lower these interest rates. He didn't touch them last time. Didn't touch them before. We have to start lowering the interest rates to make it more affordable, not just for the people to get a mortgage, but the builders. They don't have this cash in their back pocket. They're going to the bank and borrowing money as well. So if we can drop these interest rates, it's going to make it more affordable to build, more affordable to buy, and that's one of the steps that we have to do. We have
There you go.
Careful, Dougie, mate. You're not supposed to question the most powerful man in Canada and who has the most responsibility for all things. You're not allowed to do that, Dougie. He's like the Pope, and you're a cardinal. Like, shut your mouth.
So that's buyers are not responding as the Toronto real estate listings glut now is at 30,000 units. Prices are dropping to, and that's a 41.5% increase from a year ago. Sales are also down 13%, and interest rates, again, and we've talked about it many times, that they need to cut the rates because unemployment is rising. The real estate market, which is the biggest thing for Canadians, right? Most of their wealth is tied up in their real estate. If you start to see the real estate collapse, that'll just really rock confidence here in Canada.
Well, also for people that care about GDP, for people that think that GDP represents anything at all, housing is obviously very important because it's the largest part of Canada's GDP. So those ridiculously inflated assets, and now it's also house building and all kinds of things that, that's crucial to the GDP. And I know that obviously, like Canadian Press and the Globe and Mail and all the rest of it, they love to report on GDP as if it's like the be all and end all, rather than GDP per capita or the wealth of individuals, the prosperity of individuals. So that would put pressure on Carney, wouldn't it? So obviously the Carn dog, he doesn't want this to be happening either, I'm sure.
I think, like a more important one is the GDP of what we export too, because that's how we, pay the bills here in Canada for the most part. So
absolutely. But also just things like, I would say things, when you talk about GDP, it's almost as if that represents quality of life. That's how people kind of look at that, don't they? But I think there are many other ways to understand that, and it's the likes of healthcare. Like, is your emergency room open right now? If it is open, how many hours do you have to wait to be seen? Do you have a family doctor? Like, so all kinds of health questions. Then questions about schools and roads and all. Like, there are countries that don't have particularly impressive GDPs, but they're obviously richer than Canada. Country like Japan, which has a stagnant GDP per capita, it's a vastly richer country than Canada.
Yeah, and let's talk about our military for a second here. So Canada's 88 F-35s that Harper ordered way back in 2015, or when, I can't remember when he ordered, but in 2015, Trudeau said They're too expensive and they're not going to buy them. And now they're predicted to cost 50% more than the estimate in 2022 when they finally got around to saying that they're actually going to go ahead. So that troubled effort to buy those F-35s from the U.S. will cost almost 50% more than the estimate released just 2 years ago. Hey, $19 billion are now predicted to cost $27.7 billion. And they ordered these F-35s way back in Harper. Like, hopefully they're updating them or not. Maybe we're going to buy some from the UK in the garage sale again.
I think some of the Gulf states have got quite a lot of them, haven't they? I don't know about maybe Saudi and UAE. Maybe we can get some of them secondhand. But isn't it just astonishing? It's like this will surprise, I would say, nobody. Precisely nobody will be surprised to see this. And it's just like, Freeland, who I'm sure we're going to see a lot more of when she's talking about this high-speed rail thing between Quebec and Toronto. Like, when they reveal the first estimate, how much should we increase that by, do you think? Should we double it, treble it, quadruple it? What's it actually going to cost? And how are these people so incompetent that they can't even guess the price of something that they're spending such huge sums of money on? How can you not predict what something's going to cost? Even within, like, not even in the ballpark. They're so far away from it. It's just humiliating, you would think, anyway, wouldn't you? But maybe they aren't ashamed of it.
So the delays with Trudeau, way back when he said he wouldn't buy them, I mean, we have 40-year-old jets, and I don't know how they compete with the Russians and the Chinese, and 40 years old, and I think only half of them are actually even operational. So
I think it's less than half. It's 40%.
So that fleet is very out of date and not very operational. The same goes for our submarines. We learned yesterday from Mark Carney. Of the 4 subs we have, the diesel subs, only 1 is in operation. I wonder who we sell them to. The UK sold them to us. Like, who can we sell them to? A museum, or where do we sell them?
Maybe a museum, yeah.
There you go. And then this one here we've talked about time and time again. I didn't put the clip in because it was actually painful. It was absolutely painful because he asked the question, goes back and forth, and we talked about this many times. The EV mandate, and this says, Dan Manzier says that the environment minister double down on the ban for gas-powered cars by 2035, and the answer is, it sounds like right now that they're not going to make any changes in that. And I just watched some stuff on the European Union, and the auto sector there is just falling apart as well. Massive layoffs there. And we're going to get the same thing here. We're going to get the same thing here. If they don't change the EV mandate here, and Americans have already done it, the legacy automakers are likely going to move south. Or they might get punished, right?
I want to know, when is the Liberal Party going to formally change its name to the Conservative Party? Because they just absolutely love the status quo, don't they? That they seem to exist to conserve what they've created. They're sort of true blue conservatives, aren't they? But just for their own ideas rather than the ideas of the Tory Party.
They don't know how to say whoops, like, okay, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. And we're going to come to some more that doesn't work, like Bill C-18. But here's another one. Feds failed to follow the rules in awarding over 100 contracts to a Arrive-Can firm, says the Auditor General. I think one of the things that the Liberals might want to do is get rid of the Auditor Generals, in period, just like BC, right? Just like, why should we have those, right? These people are just annoying, right?
Yeah, this is just embarrassing.
Another example of government incompetence, Auditor General has said federal organizations failed to follow procurement and security rules when doling out contracts to a firm that built the controversial COVID-era Arrive-Can app. GC Strategies was awarded 106 contracts by 31 different federal organizations between 2015 and 24. Yeah, I mean, you dig into that thing and it's just abysmal. And it's just like the tip of the iceberg kind of stuff.
But it's also, when we watch, like, usually when we sort of, as observers of high stakes competitions or organizations or something like that, like sport, military, anything to do with the military, you obviously see, like, people do something stupid, they fail, and then they're punished before your eyes, you know? So in sport, you lose the competition, you lose the trophy, and probably you lose your position in the team, and then maybe even you're sold or traded or something like that, and it's like you lose your contract. What happens to these failures? We're talking about failure on a much grander scale than losing a hockey game or something like that. This is failure in government, failure with taxpayers' money. And, you know, this is the ArriveCan app during COVID, which was presented to us as a life and death matter. So you can even put in kind of safety and health in there. Where are the heads on the spears? Like, who's been punished for this? And the answer is nobody. I mean, not even the political, the very sort of top-ranking officials, the politicians involved, they haven't even been punished. They've been rewarded with more seats than they had.
The Liberals and the NDP squashed any kind of like investigation to tons of these things. And here's the Auditor General not recognizing that they need to be quiet about this stuff.
But it's just, again, if you don't punish failure, what do you think happens to like an organization? You know, even as an individual, if you don't like identify and act on failure, what's going to happen? I mean, I think it's pretty obvious, isn't it? It's just going to mean more failure. And so expect more of these procurement disasters, I would say, because clearly the federal government doesn't have a system in place to deal with incompetence.
So there's about 500,000 deportees that are supposed to be going home, but they're not. And we're going to play this clip here, and we'll talk about it.
The honourable member.
What's not sustainable is that there's 500,000 people, roughly 500,000 people, as of December, who need to be removed from the country. How many have been removed?
The honourable minister.
Again, Mr. Chair, I say to you, those numbers are taken way out of context.
The honourable member.
I would ask her to say that to somebody who can't find housing in Toronto right now. There are 500,000 people, at least, in Canada who have no legal reason to be here. How many have been removed since this report came out in December?
The honourable minister.
So, Mr. Chair, we recognize there are challenges in our housing and infrastructure. That is why we have tabled the levels plan that works on sustainable immigration. We are reducing our permanent residency number.
Let's talk about challenges. Our ERs are overflowing. People can't find homes or jobs. And the levels report has immigration going up. How many people have been removed of the 500,000 that are on deportation orders that were announced in December?
The honourable minister.
Mr. Chair, to be clear, when people's visa expire, they are expected to leave the country. That is a question for CBSA and the Minister of Public.
Honourable member.
Not leaving the country. That's the problem. They're not leaving. And she won't tell us how many have been removed. What's the plan to get them to leave?
The minister.
So, Mr. Chair, again, to you, through you, to the member. We have rules in this country, and we expect people to follow those rules.
That's right.
Member.
Okay. Okay, that's like painful. Like, that's the thing about question period. Like, is it question period, or is it just, because there's no answer period for sure. It's just a lot of back and forth, and no real answer.
I just see that as like disrespect. She might as well have come and dropped her pants and done a poop on at my front door there. That's just an insult. I mean, these people, who are they? Who is this woman who seems to think that she owns the place? You're there temporarily. You're trusted. You've been given this in trust, this responsibility. It doesn't belong to you. Canadian government doesn't belong to you, nor does this country. It's not up to you to act like that, to act like it's your business or it's your house or something like that. The arrogance of these people. I don't know how, the Conservative woman there, the MP that was challenging her, I don't know how she can keep her temperature down. I don't know how they do it. I would be absolutely furious. I think I'd be kicked out by the Speaker.
That's Rempel Garner, the Conservative MP, and that's Immigration Minister Lena Diab. saying that people just, well, they should just leave on their own. They get around to it. And if you don't do anything about
a question as serious as that. We're talking about 500,000 random people. We don't even know if they're in Canada or not. Basically, the one job of a government is to protect the citizens. The rest is just, added on. That's like discretionary almost. And that's the response when it's been identified that she's failed and her government has failed in that one duty to ensure the safety of Canadian citizens.
Well, I mean, it's health, it's schools, it's everything right now. Everything is overflowing and you can't access. I mean, again, sometimes people will say, oh, you got free healthcare there. Yeah, if you can access it, if there's anything to access, free if you can get it.
And then when you identify it, you point to these like dumpster fires, these massive problems. That's the response you get. It's almost like you've knocked on her door and you're trying to sell her something. And she's just like, why are you here? Like, go away, please. I'm busy. It's just the contempt. I mean, who's behind the scenes in the Liberal Party and saying, yeah, her, she's the one. She's the one that we want to represent this government. She's great. Let's get her on board.
I think this seems to be a common line that's put out there by the Liberals when they're answering. Let me be clear. And then there's the furthest thing from clarity that you get out of it.
That's, again, though, I point to this often about how they seem to admire the British. That's what Keir Starmer does. Whenever he's, well, actually, and some of his predecessors did that. But whenever he's put on the spot about some massive failure in England, he goes, let me be absolutely clear. And then he goes on to tell a lie. Yeah. So I guess they're watching the BBC, aren't they?
It must be. As a number of American tourists coming to Canada declines, tourist group airs TV ad down south. There you go. Canadian Tourism Group has launched TV ads designed to reassure Americans they're welcome north of the border. It comes as a number of Americans heading into Canada by car decline 10%. Like booing the national anthem and all those kind of things. Probably not very welcoming. And and again, are we spending more money with Meta?
Well, it's this is a CBC story, obviously, as we can see, the little logo there. But if you go and read, there's a guy who's like a biker, and he was planning on a tour in Canada, and he made a very rational and very obvious point, which you can't help but sympathize with. He said, I realize most people are probably going to be nice to me, but when you're on a bike, it only takes one jerk to throw something at you or knock into you, and then you're basically dead. And so he's made a very rational decision there, and he's thought, okay, maybe not. And that he's not assigning blame necessarily. He's just saying this is the reality.
The reality of the situation. Yeah, no, then like I said, like people get a perception when you boo the national anthem. It's what I mean. It's not booing Trump. It's booing Americans, and then they look at that and they say, why would I want to go there? Maybe just stop doing stuff that's silly.
And Americans are obviously very sensitive about this kind of thing. I mean, lots of nationalities are, but certainly the Americans are. And I think they were quite shocked, weren't they? Especially by what you're talking about, the booing.
Yeah, maybe they should spend...
I think that went around a lot in social media, and there were a lot of shocked Americans, including like Democrats and sort of people in the center.
Well, if you think about it, sports has a big audience, and you're watching the sports broadcast to watch your favorite team play, and here they are booing the national anthem. And if you're making your travel plans, at some point you say, I don't think so. And maybe they should spend the money on the ads on how to act with some decorum and civility. Maybe that should be spent more on the people that were doing that nonsense. Because I know that all the people in the arena weren't doing it. Because most people would feel embarrassed to do that. I mean, I know I wouldn't be doing it. So.
But the thing is, Mark Carney and the Liberals, and to a lesser extent other political leaders like Jagmeet Singh and many, Polyev not so much, not till later on, but lots of leaders during the election, they poured gas on the fire and they used it to try and win power, and succeeded in winning power in the case of the Liberals and in the case of Doug Ford. They exaggerated it while at the same time in the case of Mark Carney they were putting the elbows down and making sure that the sanctions were delayed, counter sanctions on the United States were delayed, and saying God knows what to Donald Trump on the phone to sweeten him and to make him happy. I mean, the thing is, they exacerbated this, and animosity, and they kind of rode the bull, didn't they, to try and win power? And obviously it worked, and I'm sure they feel very proud of themselves. But there are consequences to doing that kind of thing.
It goes all the way back to Trudeau when Kamala Harris lost the election, when he basically said half the American voting public was misogynist and a whole bunch of different things when he called out the American people. And you know, when you're doing that booing of the national anthem, and that does not go well, you know, it seemed like there was an attack on America instead of the politics of a certain politician. And that in itself is very, very, it leads to this, because like right now, Canada should be viewed as one of the great places to go because our dollar's cheap. It's a cheap place to come to. But if you treat people, because Americans typically are very, very proud of being American, and a lot of people do because that's why everybody wants to go to America. And then you're telling them they're not welcome here. Why would they come?
Yeah, and giving them something to worry about, you know. And we saw the same, even if it's just a little bit of worry, but we saw the same with like Tesla. It's like a lot of people in the market for a car, they would have thought, okay, I really like Tesla, but is it worth like the small chance that some maniac is going to throw a rock at my windscreen or something like that? It's like, maybe not, you know. It has that effect. And even this is what I'm not saying that Canadian politicians or whatever, the Canadian public, are guilty of terrorism here, but this is the point of terrorism in a way, isn't it? It's like you set off a couple of bombs on on planes or trains or something like that, and you hope to affect the whole population, even though they might not be at any real risk going on a train. They're going to think about it. That's kind of the point, isn't it? And it's had that effect. I mean, the Tesla thing was almost like a species of terrorism, wasn't it? It made people fear buying a Tesla. Whereas in this case, yeah, I mean, the ultimate effect, I wouldn't call it terrorism, but the ultimate effect is that it's almost like a roll of the dice to an extent. That's what Americans think. It's like, should I go to Ontario or British Columbia with my Tennessee plates? And they might think, you know what? Nah, I'm not going to take the risk. And that's kind of understandable, isn't it? But obviously that's bad for Canada.
Some of these people feel like they've been deputized to be vigilantes and different things, and especially the Tesla thing. I was just at a dealership here, Mazda dealership, and they had like 4 or 5 Teslas in the front there. And I saw you got a lot of Teslas here. He says, yeah, some of the people are selling them because they're scared to drive them. So I mean, that's just it, right? Like, and then it only takes, like you say, 1 or 2 of these self-deputized vigilantes to go after people in certain ways, and just in the politics of it all. And that leads us into this next piece here. This is, I think this is in the wrong section here, but we're going to talk about it. We'll come back to the other stuff. John Federman, Senator Federman, says that he unapologetically stands for free speech, peaceful demonstration, immigration, but this is not that, because like a lot of the left-wing media in the U.S. and some of the Democrats are telling everybody that this is all peaceful, and he's saying this is anarchy and true chaos, and he says his party loses the moral high ground when we refuse to condemn setting cars on fire, destroying buildings, and assaulting law enforcement like they did with the Teslas and different things. And this is, they actually ordered a bunch of Waymos and then set them all on fire. And then Waymo pulled out.
Yeah, I saw that, and that is very weird. It's hard to say, hard to like grasp that and understand that, isn't it? It's like it's persecuting the future almost. It's like trying to destroy the future for everyone. So it's like, we can't have these nice self-driving cars. We're just going to trash them, and then nobody can have them. Yeah. It's there's something really poignant about that, I think.
And that brings us to like a free and independent media, like, you know, because a lot of, we're talking about that, is like a lot of the media in the U.S. is like basically acting as political lobbyists. You know, like they're kind of downplaying everything that's going on, and you know, like they're saying, oh, it's peaceful protest. Meanwhile, cars are burning in the background. Police officers are being assaulted. I think they got that one guy that I watched him throw rocks at probably like 10 police cars, and like big rocks. And supposedly, again, similar to some of these other riots, there's people that were delivering pallets of bricks and stuff like that. I'm sure there'll be more investigations, though, now than there was under the Biden administration, like why pallets of bricks are being delivered to, you know, like these protest areas.
Yeah, I feel like in the past, you know, the Black Lives Matter, George Floyd, whatever riots, in that era, that period, I feel like people were still a little bit naive about what we might as well call sort of like left-wing extremism or something like that, because a lot of it was like Antifa, wasn't it? And these crazy violent groups. But and because of that, because people weren't really aware, there was an ability to kind of operate in that mystery and that naivety, maybe. But I feel like now people know about this kind of thing. So my instinct is that there's a lot less sympathy, because people know that that there are these like groups of psychopaths that go around and do sort of political damage, like political violence, I think it's fair to say. So I do, yeah, I feel like, and it's courtesy of people like Trump, to be fair, that maybe more Americans now have got their number and they know what this is about.
The RCMP USB stick containing IDs of police officers, informants, and victims offered up for sale. A USB memory device containing the personal information of victims, informants, and witness was lost by the RCMP and later put up for sale by criminals, according to the Federal Privacy Commissioner. And said the loss of an unencrypted device. Again, why was it unencrypted if it had that kind of sensitive information on? Like, seriously, like what? Like what? It contained personal information of 1,741 people, including officers. I mean, that's informants. Like, you would think that the level of security would be a little higher than that to put it on a USB stick that some guy just accidentally lost.
It's insane, isn't it? Especially when, when you read these stories, it's like the ultimate modern day tragedy where there's usually a man has got a USB device or like an external hard drive or something like that, and it contains a certain number of bitcoins that he bought in like 2010 or something like that for pennies, and it's now worth like $50 billion, but he can't get into it because he's forgot his password. There's a number of people in that situation, and It's like absolutely, I mean, I don't want to go into that. That's a separate issue. It's completely tragic. But how is it that those people can create passwords that are so secure that there's literally no way to, like, they've offered billions of dollars to people if they can crack it, and they can't be cracked. So if it's possible to do that, why can't the RCMP just do that? Just do a simple password? It seems like it works enough to protect billions of dollars in Bitcoin. Why can't you do that to protect informants?
Well, let's go back to what we talked about earlier, accountability. Will somebody be held accountable?
No, is the answer to that.
Will somebody
it's astonishing. If I was one of these informants here, I mean, it's not just about that, though, is it? It's not just about this one instance. It's also about how's the RCMP going to put their arm around someone and say, give us the goods, be an informant. How are they going to do that and expect to be taken seriously? That if I was in a position to inform on someone or be a witness, even because there were witnesses on here, like, I would think twice. I'd be like, do you know what, mate? No, I'm not going to have my name put on a USB stick with no password on it, so that it can be sold on the dark web and somebody can come and shoot me in the head while I'm, going to the grocery store. No, thank you.
The feds are targeting takeout fees, and this is for the DoorDash stuff. U.S.-based DoorDash yesterday accused Canadian antitrust lawyers of being overly punitive attempt to challenge its business model. And because the Federal Competition Bureau accused the delivery company of pocketing millions through misleading advertising. And like special fees. And I don't know if do you use the Skip or DoorDash or any of these products?
I have in the past, and the only one that I use now is Uber Eats. And I must say, I agree with the antitrust lawyers here. I think they make it seem like you can get yourself a cheap meal or something like that, but then they add these like inexplicable fees on top, and then also the usual, like, you got a tip and all the rest of it. It's just it makes no sense at all. I think it's better to go and just drive to the place and pick it up.
And then the other thing is like if money is getting tighter and tighter, just stop. Some people are addicted to these services. They just think that it's like it's their usual way of getting food, and then they complain that they don't have any money. I used it once when we were because I have like the Uber platform, and then there was Uber Eats, and I tried it out because I like to try things out and see what they're like, and it had Costco on there. And I ordered one of their chickens, like that nuclear chicken they have there, like it's a $7.99. But on the app, though, it doesn't tell you, but that chicken is marked up to $10.99 when you get it. And so not only is there fees and stuff like that, but the food typically sometimes is marked up as well.
Yep. And it also, they'll say there'll be a delivery fee as well that they add, then the service fee. And then there's also some other fee, like eco fees or something like that, tend to get put on. It's just full of these fees. And it just gets to the point where, is it worth it? And then usually the meal will arrive and it's like not as good as you would expect. And then you just feel ashamed and disappointed. But it's definitely true that there are some people, and I'm not meaning to have a go at anyone here, but usually people who are kind of single, let's say, not people, not families, but people who are living the good old single life. Often people like that, they will get it literally breakfast, lunch, and dinner, like almost every day. I know a few people like that, and it's kind of, I don't understand that. I think that's gone rather too far.
And I do know a few as well that say they're too busy to do it themselves, yet all they do is sit in front of the TV and watch sports. Obviously, that's their definition of busy. So they're too busy to go out and cook, and they don't know how to cook, and they have all these excuses and stuff like that. And like, we're going to try and give out some finance tips here, how to kind of like battle this food inflation and that. And I would say, get yourself a Costco card. Get yourself a Costco card. And go to Costco once a week and buy even those meal kits. If you're too lazy to cook and don't know how to cook, just use those Costco cards. Or sorry, those Costco meals. And if you're a single person, like their taco kit's probably good for 3 or 4 days. Just stop thinking that everything is about a convenience for you, right? The world wasn't conveniently created for you.
But that's the thing, isn't it? And I mean, we could talk about this, I think, at great length and expand it to many other subjects. But I think it's luxurious, isn't it? It's a luxury, and it feels good, and it feels so convenient. But I sometimes wonder, it's like, at what cost am I getting this? And I don't just mean dollars. I mean, like, what is the real societal cost of this? And it's like 9 times out of 10, it'll be delivered by somebody like an immigrant. From usually I find the subcontinent, usually from India. And you just have to, all sorts of questions. It's kind of like, is my desire for self-indulgence here, like, what effect is that having on his life, who's dropping off this food, but also on Canada as well? Like, are we inviting people here from places like India so they can deliver us like bagels because we're too lazy to go to make them ourselves, or to go to a place and get some bagels? It's kind of like, is that what this is for? Is that what this country is about? Like, you can ask some pretty sort of dire questions, I think, when you look into it in more depth.
Yeah, I mean, there's been some accusations by some high-profile people that the open border policy, especially in the United States, is nothing more than modern-day slavery, to get a bunch of people to come here, illegal immigrants that are under the system where they can't even be kind of like put through the rules and protections and that. And then you have these people that'll work for really low wages, and you can do almost anything with them, and it's just kind of ridiculous. So
yeah, and they just in many cases they have to endure the life of a servant. Basically, it's antithetical to Canadian, to the philosophy of Canada. Basically, the culture of Canada. Like, nobody would expect that for their kids here, would they? But it's okay for random foreigners to come and do it, and they must suffer. But it's bad for them, but it's also bad for us, I feel. It makes us worse.
And if you want to be healthier, cook for yourself. Learn how to cook. If you don't know how to cook, there's YouTube videos. Watch YouTube videos and learn how to cook basic meals. And here's the tip. Learn how to cook one thing and eat that till you get the desire to learn to cook something else. You know what I mean? Just punish yourself with eating the same meal every day. When I was a young single guy working at the mill, I ate peanut butter and jelly sandwiches probably for 3 years straight. That was my lunch. So then after that, you learn to make different things. You know what I mean? Instead of being lazy, right? But I didn't have any skip the dishes back then, obviously. But I do remember like a place called Red Rooster where you could buy 3 burgers for $5. But I stopped buying those after I bit one and chipped my tooth because there was a bone in there. So that's how they did them for $5. But anyway.
Bone burger.
Bone burger. Anyway, fertility rates. Unprecedented decline in fertility rates warns the UN. Imagine that the world experienced unprecedented decline in fertility rates. The agency's population found that most people want 2 or more children, but many feel unable to create the families they want. Again, we come back to no housing, no health care, and lack of money and lack of future.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the UN is, if you look at that tweet, they've seized upon the opportunity to talk about climate change. I don't really think that that's a factor for very many people in reality,
Well,
certainly not in
some
Zimbabwe,
people,
which is where this tweet is coming from.
but some people, even in Canada, say they don't want to have children because they worry about climate change, and that's their way to battle climate change. They've decided not to have children.
I feel like that's a noisy minority.
Yeah.
But the point I'm making is just the UN has its it has the things that it likes to talk about. Climate change is number 1 on that list. So obviously it's just crowbarred climate change into this debate. But this is quite interesting, actually, because the UN hasn't really said anything about the fertility crisis, which has been going on for ages now. It's a well-established crisis, probably the biggest crisis that we face, other than the possibility of nuclear war or some kind of like super volcano eruption or something like that. It is the biggest issue that we can maybe control. Let's put it that way. I don't know. Or can we? That's the question. I mean, a lot of people are wondering, like, can we actually control this? Because I don't. The more that people try and fix it, the more obvious it becomes that it's not actually fixable. Like the Hungarians, the Russians, the French, the South Koreans, they've all tried to boost fertility rates through basically bribes, and it doesn't really work. There's no real evidence that it's going to work in the long term. So, but the weirdest thing is, and the UN has pointed this out, it's the disparity between the amount of kids that people have and the amount of kids that they want. Because a lot of the arguments that you hear now is like, oh, nobody wants kids because they're too hard to look after and blah blah blah. But that's not the reality. The reality is that most people do want kids, and they want more than they're able to have. So there's something that's like holding them back. But yeah, this is one to keep on looking at. I mean, we're talking about Deliveroo, not Deliveroo, sorry, that's in England. We're talking about Skip the Dishes and Uber and all that. That is partly a question of fertility rates as well, isn't it? That's why they tend to be from places like India, because India had high fertility rates up until recently. But the thing is, Canada's fertility rates are in the garbage. They're so bad. It's such a catastrophe in Canada. But even India's now fallen to the point where India's not going to have surplus population anymore. So then you have to ask the question, like, where are the people going to come from?
We haven't heard from Pierre Poilievre that much. They're missing their star player in the Parliament, but he's come out and said that he says you don't need consensus to approve major projects like pipelines. And we're going to skip this next one. David Eby, though, says it's not him blocking Alberta's oil pipeline. It's a lack of money and proponents. Eby says that it's not him standing in the way of Alberta's counterpart, Daniel Smith's long-wanted pipeline. There you go. Eby said if Smith succeeds in finding a proponent and funding and assembles a project, that BC would look at it at that point. Now he's just trying to kick the can down the road as opposed to just like...
It's another delay tactic, isn't it? The problem with this is this one might not last very long. Because if an oil company or whatever, construction company comes out and says, all right, here's an idea for a pipeline, then this excuse is gone. Now he needs another one, What's his next one?
But the thing is it's hard to find a proponent or a company to do it if they realize all these roadblocks are in their way. Why would they put out all that capital? And many companies in British Columbia have done that in the past. And let's take Canfor, for instance, and said that BC is not investable because there's no certainty. And that's the thing that's missing. When you want to deploy large amounts of capital, they need some type of certainty, right? Not we invest billions of dollars like they did in that oil sands project there in Alberta, and then that was Teck. I don't know how many billions of dollars they put into it, and then they just gave up at some point and said that's it because the environmental hurdles that were being put forward to them by the Liberals.
It's true though, because I mean the biggest issue really for them is the ban on oil tankers in the northern BC coast, because nobody's talking about going down to the Lower Mainland again. They're talking about going to Prince Rupert. So what's the point? It is true. It's like, what's the point of even putting forward an idea if you can't even ship it because it's banned? But I mean, he's kind of what EB's done here in his like game of chess or whatever it is he's playing, checkers. What he's done is he's basically made it so that now a company has to come forward and put a proposal on the table, and then he can object to that proposal. That gives him lots of nice material. Like there'll be a paragraph in there that he doesn't like, then he can object to that paragraph, and then another paragraph, and then some First Nation will be upset, and then he'll say, "Oh well, this First Nation's." It's like the opportunities are just endless for EB to delay, and he will.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're going to move on to our health crisis that continues to pain residents here, not only in the Okanagan here, but also in British Columbia in general. 7 pediatricians resigned from Kelowna General Hospital in 1 year. And this is a story Josh did this, our news director did this. And the pediatricians who live and work in Kelowna have spoken out about the ongoing closure. And only a small number of local pediatricians still work at the hospital. There are reportedly 20 living and working in Kelowna, but only 4 of them work at KGH. That's where they should be spending the money. How do we get them back into the hospital so that we can have an operating ward, a pediatrics ward?
Because it's not like they need to be persuaded to specialize in pediatrics or be persuaded to move to Kelowna or whatever. It's like they're there and ready. It just needs to be the arrangement needs to suit them, and it doesn't right now.
And that's the thing. Like we're spending $5 million on ads into the United States to try to get doctors and nurses to come here. Somebody should spend some money in sitting down with these pediatricians that have resigned and figuring out a way to get them to come back to work in the hospital.
But this is the attitude, this is like in miniature, this is the attitude that Western governments have adopted for decades now, where it's like, it's too difficult to figure it out as it is. So we'll just get some people from overseas. They'll just come in. We'll just use immigration. Immigration fixes everything in their minds. Obviously, that's not true. And I mean, even an imbecile could look at this and say, that's how you fix this, obviously. You just go and speak to these pediatricians down the road in Kelowna and see what they want and fix it for them.
So here's one of the fixes that they think is going to fix things. Josie Osborne, the health minister, says that BC government is working to reverse changes that slash accommodation funding for out-of-town parents whose children receive specialized hospital care in Vancouver. And again, you have to have a ceiling of $85,000 and under to be eligible. So that probably, again, a lot of these programs by the BC government are put at a ceiling. And then at some point, somebody says, well, I don't want to make $86,000. Because, they all these things that, like they cut off, and it's almost better to this NDP figures out, like the NDP created this problem by just not listening, because this has been going on for a while. All of a sudden you put ceilings for everything, like, you're eligible for it if you're this, like that. The family's already suffering if they have to go now to Vancouver. You're also taking the support networks away from the child and stuff like that. You're responsible for this problem. Stop putting out these small stopgaps and stuff like that. They fix the problem. Be responsible. And again,
yeah, she was asked this question last week on Friday, I think. So that's a pretty quick response. Just some journalists brought this up. I mean, talk about the power of the media.
Yeah.
Just asking a question, and she didn't really have an answer to it, and clearly felt bad. And then here we are on the Monday, and she's announced that she's reversing the decision. Okay.
And then here you go. Another two BC Interior hospitals forced to shut down their emergency departments. I mean, Lillooet has just been, Lillooet's definitely leading the way for closures this year. So Lillooet, and again, the hospital also in Clearwater shut their emergency rooms down. Again, this.
Well, they said as well, the people in Clearwater were told, so as you see, they're told, go to 100 Mile House. 100 Mile House ER was shut on Sunday. So if I was in Clearwater and Interior Health is telling you to go to 100 Mile House, I'd say don't go there, because there's a reasonable chance that that's going to shut down as well. It's such a minefield, isn't it, at the minute in the interior?
And then who's held accountable for this health crisis in British Columbia? Adrian Dix, Josie Osborne, the NDP, who?
Donald Trump is the answer to that.
Donald Trump, yeah, likely Donald Trump. Eleanor Sturko, an ER physician, has launched legal action after she was fired for blowing a whistle on dangerous hospital conditions. Instead of acknowledging the safety crisis, Fraser Health opted for punishment. And that's what we talked about here, this fear, culture of fear here that exists in Kelowna. Same thing, preventable deaths, violent attacks, doctor alleges deteriorating conditions at Fraser Health. And so somebody raises the alarm, and what do they get? Fired.
It's shocking. And I think, like, I don't know the extent to which this is true, but I mean, I can't help but think that this is in some way related to the madness of the COVID era, where I think a lot of these institutions got a little bit sort of power mad, didn't they? Because they suddenly found themselves in this position where they were just firing people left, right, and center and taking away their livelihoods because of things that they'd said, for example.
Yeah.
So now maybe they feel emboldened to do it for other subjects as well.
Well, don't dare talk bad about institutions and the organizations, the bureaucracy. We saw that during COVID. And Tiff Macklin, again, there's another one that we talk about all the time. How does he still have his job? That's the question. That's the question. I did an interview with the Caden Rainville of the BC Interior Realtors recommending changes to the short-term rental policies here in the Okanagan here. And I was at that chamber conference or chamber luncheon where we had Brenda Bailey, the finance minister, speaking. It doesn't sound like the BC NDP are even going to consider it, even though tourism is suffering in some points. And they again, just like the Liberals, they are not a type that like change their policies. But you can watch that interview. You can watch that full interview. It's on Kelowna Now. There you can go watch it's on our YouTube channel as well. But the story is there, and you can go read it. So, and they've compiled data over the last year and a half or so to make what they're asking for. They're asking for some changes to areas, especially areas that were zoned for and sold as Airbnb properties, like short-term rentals for the tourism market. There you go. Another tweet here from Eleanor Sturko. She's definitely working it. She's one that's earning her money. A letter shows Biden administration privately warned BC on fentanyl threat years before Patel's public bombshells. So a newly released letter shows U.S. officials warned 2 years ago under the Biden administration that foreign government-backed transnational crime organizations were using BC as a hub for fentanyl production and export. Despite knowing this, EB and the NDP dismissed recent warnings from U.S. officials as trade war rhetoric. And we heard that over and over and over again.
Yeah, partly the Trump effect, though. Yeah. Trump needed to find a justification for his for the tariffs, which otherwise aren't constitutional. So he had to pretend that there was an emergency to make it an executive power. But that doesn't change the fact that, EB and the rest of like the NDP and Justin Trudeau before him, they've jumped on Trump's obnoxiousness as an opportunity to sweep their own responsibility under the carpet and pretend that it's all just Trump's imagination.
That's all they've done. And then another one here, exclusive BC Public. This is the Vancouver Sun article. You can go read it. Go on the Vancouver Sun and read this. Exclusive BC public sector jobs have more than doubled under the NDP. We've covered that many times too. But since 2017, government health and education workers rose from 50 to 93,000, and the salaries jumped from 4.7 billion to 11 billion. There you go. And some of the salaries here, we're just going to take a look at some of these salaries here. We got a few charts here. The managing director at PowerX, which is the power company, like $1.5 million. That's not too bad. Hey, not too shabby for a government job. Hey, lots of guys at PowerX.
How many times high? That's like 3 times the salary of the prime minister, isn't it?
Yeah, lots of the PowerX guys are actually, the energy guys are rolling the money. Also, the president and the CEO of the UBC Investment Management, he's doing okay too at $1 million. Hey, you can go find all this stuff.
Also, this other guy from UBC, they're raking it in, yeah.
And you can go all find this stuff. This is all public information. It's nobody goes and looks at it, right? So, And then I just poked Interior Health here to see Susan Brown, the CEO. She's making a paltry $403,000. barely getting by.
Well, at least she's excellent at her job and has lots of successes to point to.
Yeah, you could talk to all the pediatricians that quit the hospital and talk to them, see how well it's going. Anyway, let's move on to markets. Yeah, stock market. It's again, just kind of like flat to like barely moving around. I mean, just kind of looking for direction. There's talk that something's going to happen with that the China-U.S. trade deal would be huge. If they get a deal, that stock market's probably going to shoot higher, because that's the really big deal. That is the elephant in the room as far as the trade stuff goes. And
they're in London right now, chatting to each other.
Yeah. So there's talks anyway. So if that deal happens, you can look for the market to move substantially higher, I would say, because that's what's kind of like, that's the lid on the pot right now. And it looks like the market wants to move higher. It's just looking for the direction. And same thing goes for our gold. Gold is kind of like, like hanging in that $3,300 mark. It's off right now. Right now, it's off about $3. It was up about, a few bucks this morning and just kind of like flatlining. You can see that chart start there. If you go to the next one, you can see that chart starting to kind of build a little bit of a base here before it finds its direction. It's coiling a bit there, so that says likely to go up. Silver, I wanted to bring up silver though, and this is the first chart here, silver. This is a 10-year chart on silver, and silver really looking strong here. Like breaking out above that 30 mark there is huge for silver. And then if we pull up a historical chart there, you can kind of see the last two big run-ups in silver. And the Hunt brothers way back there in the 80s, and then the recent meme thing when it broke 50 bucks there. It didn't last very long there. Same with the Hunt brothers. It spiked and then kind of fell off. But this chart, if you look at it from a long-term basis, there's lots of people that are really long silver and they really like silver. Silver is not held by central banks like the central banks hold gold. But silver has industrial use as well as, lots of people call it the poor man's gold because you can buy an ounce of silver a lot cheaper than you can buy an ounce of gold, right? So
it's crucial to the tech revolution, isn't it? Silver, and so is gold actually, but
it's in your phones, it's in your computers and stuff like that. But it's one of the bigger uses for it is solar panels for sure. Lots of it in the solar panels, and a spike would probably make silver investors nervous because the spike usually triggers a sell-off, but a gradual build like it's doing, I would say, there's something to it. So we put silver in there because, like I said, we've been talking about silver like making its move there for a while. So, and Bitcoin looking again to challenge. Bitcoin looking to challenge its highs there. Bitcoin currently trading, like that. Like near its highs, like it was 109. It's actually currently at 108,744. Again, lots of wind in the sails for Bitcoin. Canadian dollar more a product of the rise there, more a product of U.S. dollar weakness than Canadian dollar strength. And some people are saying that it could go to 77 cents based on that, but I don't know. I think that the bigger thing is what happens with the pipeline. I think that's what everybody's waiting to see. And then if we look at oil futures, West Texas Intermediate, the top one there, up under $1, 66 bucks. And then if we look down in the middle there and find our Western Canadian Select at 52 bucks at a significant discount to West Texas Intermediate. There you go. And then in our technology and transportation sector, look at this. And Google CEO says that he has no doubt that Elon will succeed with robotaxis, and that's going to launch here 2 days from now, June 12th, supposedly launching there in Texas, in Austin. So there you go. And Google has the Waymos that were all lit on fire there. They ordered a bunch of Waymos and then lit them on fire. I'm not sure why they targeted the Waymos and not Tesla at that time. Weird. And then and this is what we just talked about. Tesla's now officially listed on Austin's DMV site as known AV operator in Austin. And there you go. So that launch is getting closer. And the stock's up this morning again after the Trump Elon feud is kind of like subdued a bit, and yeah, so there you go. It was up there. Where is it right now? I don't know. It was up substantially this morning, and right now it's up. Yeah, so it's up 318. So there you go. And then Starlink is now available in 140 countries and territories, and anywhere on the ocean, I guess. So yeah, he has to get permission to run it in certain countries. So Starlink everywhere. And Ohio State will make all students learn AI. There's a good thing to do, right? You'd think so, right? Some schools are pushing back against it, but the state of Ohio and I think Florida definitely now are doing it. And then so that'll, Ohio State University will learn to use AI as part of their education. It seems like a no-brainer, right? There you go. And Apple admits, and Apple had their conference, started their conference at WWDC, saying that the Siri AI needs an overhaul. No doubt, eh?
They published something, didn't they, recently, Apple, saying that it's like AI is actually not all that smart, and we're nowhere near general intelligence and all kinds of. They poured a lot of cold water on it, didn't they?
Imagine that. Wave has struck a deal with Uber, and Uber plans on self-driving taxis and robotaxis in trial in the United Kingdom. There you go. Uber's set to launch a trial of self-driving robotaxis, and that's using Wave's technology. So that marks Uber's first pilot of its kind in the UK. So there you go. And then the other
if that succeeds in England, then it can succeed anywhere, because it's a nightmare driving in England. It's not a straightforward activity.
And then OpenAI strikes unprecedented cloud deal with Google. There you go. Two giants in the AI space, eh? And then now we're to our Are You Serious section. Are you actually serious? And this one I had to play, and this is a clip here from Maxine Waters, right? Let's play this clip. It's side by side here. Somebody put it together.
Those who were out of step with what we are advocating, peaceful protest, did not create any violence. Nobody was shot. Nobody was killed. Get it in your head. And so when martial law is called, what are you going to say? I missed the point. Don't miss the point, you all. Don't think that somehow, because they called out the National Guard, there was violence. There was no violence. I was on the street. I know. And I went from downtown detention back out into the community, talking to people what happened in Paramount, what happened in Compton, what happened in Inglewood. So, first of all, get it straight. And don't just rely on what you're being told or the few incidents that you saw.
Well, it's interesting. I didn't know she was a specialist in epistemology, giving a nice philosophy lecture there.
He's pulling out the old Joe Biden, cheap fakes, right? All those things you're watching.
Do you remember Maxine Waters during the George Floyd riots?
I don't.
That's when she became internationally famous, I think, for some of the insane things she was saying. Wasn't she the one saying, like, go to their homes, go to them in the street, and like talking about harassing people? I mean, Americans are funny, aren't they? That they would elect somebody like that. But
well, we had that post there from Senator Federman there, the Democrat, earlier, in saying that the Democrats are going to lose the moral ground when they keep saying nonsense like this. So even within their own party, they're starting to say this is just nonsense, right? So again, you know, in the backdrop of all these cars burning, and maybe she should listen to what the chief of the LAPD had to say too. She should listen to them when they're fearing for their lives. So again, why?
Nowadays, you've got to filter reality through a political lens, haven't you? And obviously, Maxine Waters is good at that.
You got to watch the cheap fakes. And here's our friends at the Babylon Bee there. Amazon creates online looting apps. So if those that are too timid to go loot out in public, so you can actually just loot online.
That's very funny, isn't it?
I think an Apple store got looted there last night, and I guess the cops did show up and started arresting people that were looting the Apple store.
Expensive shoes there.
Yeah, they are expensive, aren't they? Nike Air Jordan. Well, you don't want to buy those. You'd want to loot those for sure. And then another one from the B, liberals warn enforcing immigration laws slippery slope that may lead to enforcing other laws. You don't want that. And then this is from a Marine here, I guess. See what he has to say.
I don't know who need to hear this. You know what I'm saying? I see a lot of people be talking shit about America. Hey, if you don't like America, go to another country, bitch. I love this country. I'll protect this bitch.
You're not mincing any words, eh? I don't like it.
That was surprisingly funny.
Sitting in his Humvee, ready to go.
Yeah, I love the syntax there. It was very good.
There you go. And then Patrick Bet-David, he's pretty popular. He's a former Iranian. He was born in Iran, said he hid underneath the stairwells as they were bombing. And he got to come to the United States. And he said he wasn't very bright in school. I don't know if you know the story of Patrick Bet-David. And he joined the U.S. Marines, and he's served as a Marine. And then now he runs a very successful insurance company and a bunch of other things. And now he's very, very successful. And he's also runs a very popular podcast video show. And he's very active politically too, right? And his tweet there, it seems he blamed Trump for every crisis in California. And he left California for these reasons. I think he's in Texas or Florida. I think he's in Florida. California wildfires, Trump's fault. Empty reservoirs, Trump's fault. California's deficit, Trump's fault. Riots in LA, Trump's fault. Which crisis do you take responsibility for? Well, if you're a Democratic governor like Newsom, that'd be none, right? Accountability equals zero. That should be a tagline. Accountability equals zero.
Well, he did do that mea culpa, didn't he? Because he had that nerd, that Trump-supporting nerd on his little podcast, didn't he? And I can't remember now what he accepted blame for, but he did say something, didn't he?
Yeah.
Or was it about Biden? Maybe it was a kind of I don't know. He did do a little bit of a mea culpa though, but that was the off season, wasn't it? That was where like he gave himself the freedom to say things like that. But now it's like the big leagues where he's having a war with Trump. So.
Yeah, so here's the funny one. If you go watch the liberal media in the U.S., if you watch this, so Gavin Newsom first said, he dared Tom Homan to arrest him. Like, he basically said, come and arrest me. Just come get me then. And then the media asked Trump, they said, so Gavin Newsom says that he dared Tom Homan to arrest him. What do you think? And Trump just said, sure. And now the media plays the headlines as like, authoritarian dictatorship, Trump looking to arrest Gavin Newsom. I think Gavin Newsom.
Well, he's also said, hasn't he? Maybe this is not 100% accurate, but Newsom or someone like Newsom has said or implied that Trump wants to start a civil war as well. Yeah. I think it was Newsom that said that, wasn't it?
Yeah. And
I mean, come on, with the hysterics like that.
And Trump's response was like, "Look, we're actually trying to put it out. You're the one that's trying to stoke it." If you use your common sense again, people. Listen to Maxine Waters. Listen to some of the rhetoric from some of the mayor of LA and stuff. Listen to them. Are they stoking or are trying to quell? And then listen to the LAPD chief and stuff like that. And then ask yourself, which one seems to be more logical? And then look at the people throwing rocks. Like we just saw in British Columbia, actually, a rock thrown through the windshield of a Tesla critically hurt somebody. And then that guy was whipping like bricks through at the windshields of police cars. Responding.
It's funny that Maxine Waters is saying, you got Maxine Waters saying, nobody's dead, nobody been killed. And it's like, how easily could somebody have been killed there? It's not. Like, if that had broken the windshield or something like that, or even obscured the view, then that could easily have resulted in a death, couldn't it?
Yeah, the best one into today's Are You Serious is the loot from home. Loot from the comfort of your home while you order DoorDash, and you know what I mean?
That was good. I also like the slippery slope one. Enforcing border laws could be a slippery slope to enforcing other laws.
And then that U.S. Marine there, he may go down as one of the spokesmen for the American military.
Well, there's been like a lot of fuss was made.
He says it plain and simple.
A lot of fuss was made as well because there was a post on, I think, Reddit, which could easily have just been fake anyway, but it's got people very excited because it was someone else that said that they were a Marine and saying that they wouldn't, they didn't want to do this and they would actually turn the guns around if it came to it. So clearly, like, there's a PR war going on there about for the hearts and minds of the soldiers, which is a little bit scary. I mean, I don't know the extent to which it's actually
because
real.
What that's saying, and that's mutiny, and that is a court-martial. So not very many soldiers are into that, saying that publicly without threat of retribution. So that's likely not very real, right?
Yeah, but that's the thing with social media, isn't it? It really can make things seem a lot bigger than they are.
Yeah, because like those guys are like brothers. They don't or brothers and sisters. They don't typically turn the weapons on themselves, so on each other. Very tough, right?
Or on Trump.
Or on anybody. Yeah, they just follow orders. So there you go. That's what makes a good military is. It's not really a voluntary thing for orders, right? I mean, it's just like, I don't know about that. I think I'm going to stay home today and order some DoorDash and do some looting from the comfort of my computer with Amazon. There you go. We're working on lots of stuff today. So that's our show for today. We'll be back tomorrow. And we do thank you for watching NowMedia.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News you can trust.